Welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll be discussing Pian Pian by HAESIN. Now before we get started, there will be spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiling this manhwa, go ahead and click off now. No worries, I'll catch you next time. Now for those of you left behind, let's go over some content warnings. There may be references to sexual harassment, violence, cheating, dubious consent, BDSM, including forced and dubious consent variations, sex in exchange for favors, manipulation, death, child abandonment, alcoholism, drug use, age gap, power imbalance, rape, blood, slut shaming, injured animals, car accident, theft, self-loathing, depression, and prejudice, as these things do appear in the manhwa. Now, if that's all good with you, let's go and get started. As always, let's start out with synopsis. This occurs in the name verse, where individuals eventually manifest their soulmate's initials somewhere on their bodies. If the two ever meet and consummate their connection, they'll be bound to each other forever, unable to be with anyone else for the remainder of their lives. The connection is so deep that being separated from your soulmate can cause irreparable health issues. This is a scary but romantic notion that Suha wants to live for himself desperately. It's especially important to Suha as he's saved himself for his soulmate since their initials manifested on his body as GHB. Most people get the initials on a normal body part, like their arms or their legs, maybe even their back. Suha, however, has his in a unique and embarrassing spot, his genitals. That makes the intensity of his need for his soulmate all the more vital, hoping that one day he'll be able to give his first time to his soulmate and have them be the first person to see their initials on his body. While Suha's dream has always been to be with his soulmate, after seeing Chef Calyx online, he also wants to become a chef. He feels so strongly about this dream, particularly about Calyx, that he goes right to the restaurant where Calyx works so he can learn under his tutelage. Working with Calyx is just as amazing as Suha imagined, but it has an odd side effect. For some reason, Suha can't stop having wet dreams with Calyx as the star of the show. As a result, working alongside the chef has been awkward, to say the least. And with Suha always imagining himself with a woman, it's even stranger that he would be so drawn to Calyx like this. Can Suha refrain from giving in to his lust, or will he forego his promise to his unknown soulmate and pursue Calyx instead? To start out with, the art is so pretty. It's very well done, minus some random sketchy lines and such. So what I'm about to say will probably be a bit controversial, but I hate how Calyx looks. Yes, I said it. His body is everything you could want and more, though his upper body can get pretty crazy anatomy-wise sometimes, but his face is just not my favorite. His jawline can be way too strong, and his eyes and nose are oddly shaped. Also, his facial features look too small for his face, making his head look huge in comparison. I'm just not fond of him, which sucks since he's the object of Suha's affection. I much prefer Sa-yeon's looks, but he's not the main top. Sad. Suha, on the other hand, is super cute. He has the best sex faces out there. If you love the bottom sex faces and Who's Your Daddy, I'll try to remember to annotate it in the upper right hand corner. Come on, Eve, you can do it. You will love Suha's. Even when he isn't in the throes of pleasure though, he's very cute, and I'm so glad he's our main character because all of his expressions are precious and fun. This is based on a slew of misunderstandings and assumptions, some less understanding than others, so this may be a tough read if you aren't into misunderstandings caused by a lack of communication. Suha is characterized as being a bit ditzy, leading to many strange leaps in logic. Both Calyx and Suha make odd assumptions that lead to needless misunderstandings. It makes sense with Suha based on his characterization, but I would think Calyx would be a bit more mindful. The way Calyx confirms he's Suha's soulmate is bizarre and pretty childish. Talking Suha into showing him his imprint as a, quote, way to grow closer. Then there's a scene where Suha and Calyx finally have penetrative sex for the first time, and after it's all over, Suha, still having not seen Calyx's imprint, assumes he doesn't have one because his soulmate died. He asks, "Have you already met your soulmate?" Rather than confirming that Suha is his soulmate, Calyx just nods, leading Suha to cry, which Calyx assumes is because he's sad that he's his soulmate. Why did Calyx assume Suha knew they were soulmates? Who knows? As it turns out, Calyx has a Korean name, Gwan Hee-bum, which matches Suha's imprint. It was on his knife, which he thought Suha would see and assume was his name. Why would anyone assume the name on a knife is the name of the person who owns it? Especially when the person doesn't even go by the name. Maybe I'm ditzy too. Like Suha, I would assume it was the maker's mark or manufacturer's name before I ever thought it was the owner's name. However, I love how it's revealed that Calyx is Suha's soulmate because, quote, a name is given meaning when someone says it. It's a beautiful concept. And the time when he gets the name and when his and Suha's imprints manifest on each other just lines up so perfectly, I wish I had written it myself. If you check out the written versions of my reviews, you may have noticed that this was tagged with Omegaverse, but everything I've described thus far is very not Omegaverse. Well, that's because the side stories have an Omegaverse AU. Cue excited squeals! This brings my heart so much joy, especially since it includes the reveal of Suha and Calyx's baby, who is so precious. I wish it had been longer because I would have loved some impreg and child rearing, but I'll take what I can get. I especially love this because Calyx avoided being with Suha because Suha expressed wanting a family with his soulmate. I like to imagine that in another world they eventually got to do just that, which is what we get to see in the Omegaverse AU. I love it. With all that being said, this is a really, really good one. It's such a unique concept, and my first time reading something part of the Nameverse. I'm looking forward to more content in this universe. It's not perfect, but it's so fun, and the big reveal of them being soulmates was just so heartrending. I have to call it one of my favorites. I highly recommend it to get your feet wet in the Nameverse. If that's not enough to tempt you, just know this is a smut fest. So, have you read Pian Pian? If so, what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you not? Let me know and comment below. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Bye!